Hey guys, what's going on? Megan here. Really quick video on how to get bigger arms. The best exercises for bigger arms from a scientific point of view, because obviously, once again, I look at both science and science. Certain things you just can't look at based on anecdotes. You can't tell us the best exercise for biceps as far as activating, recruiting as many muscle fibers as possible, just by looking on the outside end. So that's where science comes in and helps. And that's why I love this approach that I used to study, by combining and balancing both. But anyway, so I looked at a lot of EMG studies on activation of biceps and triceps, and like I said, they're not always the same. Some studies are different than others, but they always have like a common thread, right? And that's what I go for. So I wrote down all the exercises for each head of the biceps and triceps, and I looked at the ones that they all had in common. So I'm gonna give you guys the ultimate exercises that all these websites agreed on, which is amazing. I like when I see something that different opposing groups agree on. So let's start with biceps. Number one is underhand pull-ups, right? And that shocked everyone. That shocked the whole world, because you would think that the number one exercise for biceps would be an isolation exercise. It's actually underhand pull-ups, and all the pull-up variations for that matter. They're all number one when it comes to activating your biceps. And I was blown away by that, but it makes a lot of sense now if you think about it. They were number one. And also, if you look at gymnasts, which I study a lot, they have huge biceps and they barely do any curls. A lot of them don't do any curls. They do a lot of pulling movements, on the circle pull-up crap they do. So number one, chin-ups, underhand, and all the other variations, but underhand is the most effective. Number two is the barbell curls. That's the one that that's not surprising. Barbell curls is number two. What else? And that's typical standing barbell curls. And it's also a very good exercise for your upper back. When I look at the EMG studies, the barbell curl actually gave a great response for your upper back, which is shocking. But it's not really shocking if you think about it. A lot of us, tend to cheat around the 8th and 9th, 10th rep. So number one is the chin up. Number two is the barbell curl. Nice and heavy. And the number third one is actually the dumbbell concentration curl, but on the negative. If you're controlling the negative, the dumbbell concentration curl has a crazy activation on your bicep. All right, so we've done the top 3 exercises for biceps. I'll just name them: chin ups, barbell curls, and dumbbell concentration. Focus on the negative. Now triceps, my favorite of all time. I studied triceps so much because it used to be my worst body part when I started bodybuilding, and it's now actually one of my best, because I find these exercises and I use those overtraining techniques. So number one is let's start with the outer head. Let's focus on the outer head, which is the one that gives you that look from the front, and then the long head, which is the one that gives you that big tricep, big meaty look from the side. So outer head, number one is I'm gonna give you that in order of recruitment. The ultimate number one for the outer head is the bench dips, right? Typical bench dips. And I saw that from Subversity. Check these guys out. They have a lot of great information. I also looked at Brett Contreras. But anyway, so behind the back, your hands behind you, bench dips are number one for the outer head. And that's even if you're not using any weight. Number two for the outer head is actually the press downs using the rope cable. I like using either or. Pressing down at the bottom is number two as far as activation of the outer head of your triceps. And then the third one is the skull crushers. Good old school skull crushers. Just be careful with your elbows. Really good for the outer head of your triceps. Now the long head of your triceps, the number one is it actually surprised me. It was actually dumbbell kickbacks. Good old dumbbell kickbacks that most people stay away from because it's not a mass exercise. Actually number one if you want to isolate the long head of your triceps. Number two is the French press, which is the pretty much skull crushers but seated. That's number two for the long head of your triceps. And number three, shockingly, you ready for this, is the behind the neck press. Behind the neck press is actually number three for activating the long head of your triceps. But if you want to talk about straight tricep exercises, the next one in line, which is number 4, you could bump it up to number 3, is actually any overhead motion is gonna activate the long head of your triceps. Now as far as an exercise for the overall, for both outer and the long head of your triceps, from what the studies show, number one is the rope press down. If you want to activate both the long head and the outer head at the same time, it won't be the same as if you do it individually, but it's still pretty high. So the rope press downs or the bar press downs. Man, it's so hard to park over here. It's so narrow. And number 2 would be dips, as far as overall. All right, guys, hope that helps. Alright, guys, sorry about that. I had to park. I'm at the gym now. Just got off work in school. Long day of work in school. So anyway, conclusion for your triceps, outer head, bench dips, rope press downs or bar press downs, skull crushers. For the long head, it's dumbbell kickbacks, overhead extensions with the ball or dumbbell, whatever, and behind the neck press, which is gonna count on your shoulder day. And then for biceps, I already mentioned it. So that's it, guys. Try to add these exercises to your routine. If you're doing full body workouts, you need to save on time. You could try to superset them, like an outer head exercise with a long head exercise, or you could just superset 2 outer head exercises. Completely up to you, to try to save time and increase volume and density in your workout. All right, guys. So go out there and get those big ass arms. I'm out of here. Hey guys, what's going on? Megan here. I got a quick question about how long it takes for a muscle to recover. Now, obviously I looked at the studies because it's the only way you can really, answer that question. I normally pick bro science and science to try to see what they have in common, but in this case, you gotta, just look at the studies. And once again, just like every other study, they argue, they both give